Welcome to our web design course, and this is our week 2. So if you are accessing this video on YouTube, then this is a video for a course taught on Kuulchat.com. Kuulchat.com is an online education resource portal for free online courses, and we have online courses such as the web design you are coming to view, and also we have full-time mobile app development and more. So you can visit Kuulchat to get the content of this web design, to follow the video as well as take other courses. Okay, so the web design is under the information technology course. So information technology, and this is a web design course, which means we already have taught week 1. This is your first time of accessing this video. You also have to make reference to the week 1 so that you can know what previous week. Okay, that's our design course. So those who this may be their first week, my name is God. I'm the one instructing for the web. So we briefly go over what we did last. Okay, so previous week we talked about a website design, a website name, and we talk about domain name, what a domain name is. That is a unique name that identifies a website on the internet, and every website has one unique domain name. There cannot be a situation where two or more people share one domain name. No, it doesn't happen. Then where we put our pages is what we refer to as the hosting. So when you develop your web site and you need to put it online, you need a hosting space. So you contact a hosting service provider to provide you the space so you can put your pages there for people to access it online. Then we also talk about website design tools. They are main tools, but in the previous week I said you have to start developing from scratch. We are not going to use drag and drop and edit some things. No, you have to know what is involved in web design so that whatever design you want, you can design it from scratch. Not like using someone's template that you only do modification. That one you may get challenges if you are working a company and a client asks you to do it to a specific way. Then because you don't have a good foundation, you can't be able to accomplish that task. So we are going to start from the foundation so that any project you have, you can just start from scratch, or you can use your previous code you have and do some small modification for the client. Okay. Now we created our first website and we talk about the basic HTML content, and we created a skeleton page where we copied the basic HTML page there so that any project we have we can just copy and paste it there, then we can do the modification in that code. Then we talk about the 3 types of styles: the internal one, which is in the head, then the external one, which is on the file, the CSS file in the CSS folder. Then we talk about the inline one where we put it on the element itself. Okay. Now we also added a paragraph and we included an image on our page. Now today, what are we going to learn? So we will look at how you can create a table. Tables are useful. If you use Word documents before, you can see that you can create tables which has rows and columns. Okay, so now web design tool, if you're a web developer or a website designer, you need to know how you can create tables so that if you are having a content where you need to put it in a tabular form, then you use the table element. Okay, then we'll also see how you can create links. Links are the upper links are just links that when you click, it moves to a different page. For example, this we have a link here, and in the link you can see a little balloon by the cursor hand. Okay, so that is the balloon you see what we call the title of the link. We'll talk about it. Then when you click on that link, it takes you to a different page. Okay, so we'll see how we'll be able to accomplish these two things. How we can have a title on the link so that when someone hovers the mouse on the link, it just gives a brief description of what the link is about. Then we'll talk about the list. So the lists are like in web we will say bullet. Okay, so for example, in this course outline, there are a number of lists. The bullet, the dot, they are all in the list. Okay, so we'll see how we'll be able to accomplish that. Then we also talk about div. So div is the sections of your page. So the divisions of your page, how you divide your pages into sections, is what we refer to as the div tag. And this will also be talking about it. Okay, so let's get started by clicking the week for that week link. Okay, so this is a table. Now, the element for a table is the word table, TABLE. So, as mentioned last week, the elements are in less than, then the element's name, then greater than. Then every element you open, you need to close it. So the table has a table element, so it's going to be less than, then table, then greater than. Then you need to close it below it. So you have less than, then slash, then table, then greater than, then you close it. Now the table is the mother. Now it asks the children to be the rows. So the rows in the element is tr. So each row you write, you have to use the element tr. So we know elements we are in the less than, greater than. So the tr element will be less than, then tr, then greater than. So when you open that element, the tr element, you need to close it. Okay. So how many rows you have will be the number of children that will be in the table. For example, this table has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it has 7 children of rows in the table. So you need to write 7 rows. So 7 elements of rows, you need to write them. Okay. Now what are the children of a row? So children of a row are the number of columns you have in the row. Now what is a column? A column is the vertical sections of the table you have. So this one has 1, 2, 3. So this table has 3 columns. So each row should have 3 columns in them. So it means that each row will have 3 columns of children in it. Okay. Now, what do we use? What is the element for a column? Now, for the table heading, the element for the column is th, h for the heading or header h. So th is for the heading of the table. So we have the th for the column for the heading. Okay. So if your table has a heading, then you should start with a th. Now, what makes a th unique? Now, that if you write a th, they will be bold. So you don't need to bold the text inside. It will automatically be bold. Okay. Now, any other columns are referred to as td. Okay, so from here to the other ones, all the columns, you have to refer to them as TD. Okay, so in the second row, we have 3 TDs as children. In the third row, it has 3 Ds as children. In the fourth row, it has 3 TDs as children in that order. Okay, so now tables too, we can style it in the table. So we'll come to see some of the styles here. So we'll go over this HTML code, which is for the table you are seeing above. So in this HTML code, we have the style of the table should have a font family of Arial sans serif. Okay, so this is the font type that the table will have. Okay, then we have the border collapse. Then we call it a collapse. Okay, now the border collapse, each of the columns have their own divisions. So if you make the border collapse to be collapsed, then they will all be as one. So each column will not be in its own border. They will all be as one border. Okay. Now the table can have a width. If you don't specify the width, it will take the content to be the width. So if you have little content, your table will be smaller. If you have more content, the table will be bigger. Okay. Now if you want the table to take the entire screen or entire width of the space, you have to give it a width of 100%. So it will take the entire width you provide for the width. Okay. Now we have this star for our TDs or our columns. So both the TD and the table heading are having the same star. We said that they should have a border of 1 pixel solid, hashtag DDD, that 6D. Okay. Now, this is how you write the star for giving a body. So we have the border. Okay, in the previous week we saw how you write a star. We said it's supposed to be the attribute name. So the attribute name is border. Then we have the column. Then you specify the value of the attribute. So the value says that you should have 1 pixel. That's the thickness of your border. Supposed to be 1 pixel. Then solid. We have a number of types of borders. We have dotted. Dotted, you put dot on the borders. For solid, it will put something like a line. Okay. Then the next one, you specify the color of the border. Okay. So this one is giving a color of this is the color code. So in HTML, you can write a plain language like we have white, red, and the rest as color. We also have color codes that you can also use as well. So if you want to use a color code, you can search for online color codes. Then you have a list of them and their colors. So based on the color you want, then you can use that color code. Okay. Then we have the text align. So the text align is the position of the text. If it is left, the text will go to the left. If it is right, the text will move to the right. Then we have the padding. The padding is the inner space for element. So I'm going to use paint to demonstrate this for you. Okay, so we have margin and we have padding. So the padding is the inner spacing of their element. So if the element contains other elements, before the element, the inner ones comes, the space we leave is what we call the padding. Then for the margin, is between that element and the other element. Okay, so if the other element has children inside, okay, if the children comes here in this box, okay, if the children are here, so if you have a child here, you have a child there, yeah, so on the page. Now from here, the inner part of the mother to when the child start to, the content where the child will start to appear is what we call the padding. So in the inner space is a padding. So this one is padding, okay. Then the outer one, if there is another element here, the space between the two elements is what we call margin. Okay, so if you want the space to be between an element or at the starting point of your when the element comes, then that one is going to be margin. So this is margin. Okay, so this one we have margin. Okay, then this one we have padding. The padding is the inner spacing and the margin is the outer spacing. Okay, so if you are padding the top, we call it padding top. Okay, so PADD, then dash, then top. Then you can specify the value of it. Then we have padding left, padding bottom. Then we have padding right. Then we also have margin top, margin left, margin bottom, and margin right. Okay, so I believe this is okay. Then we have the styling of our TR. Now the M chart is the number of position of that the children in the that element. Okay, so it's the TR. The M chart is the children in the TR. Okay, their positions. So it says that even. So even means every second children in that row, they will have that background color. So it says background color is supposed to be hash DDD. So this is the color. Okay, so last week, like I told you, the background color can be written as background with a dash then color, or just the background. Okay, so now this one means that all our tables on every second row will have that. So our second row will have it, our fourth row will have it, and so on. So that's the meaning of even. So M chart even, that's what it does, and this one will give it that background. Okay, so we see that we open our mother table here, and it has the 7 rows. Then this is the heading of our table, so we call it a teach, and we put each of the values inside. Okay, now the subsequent TRs are TDs. So you have TDs, then we put the content, we close it. Then T put the content, we close it. and TD, then we put the content, okay, and they are all 7. Okay, so now, like they say, C is below. I'm going to copy and paste this code, but before that, like I advise you that each week you create a folder for that, so that you can put the examples we'll be doing in that project, so that if you want to make a reference to it, it will be easy for you. So we have week 2, week 2. Okay, now like we said last week that each project has images folder, so you can create those folders inside, even though there may be nothing inside. So then the next one, we have the CSS. We have our CSS. Okay, then we have our JS. So even though we haven't started using some of these things, you can create it so that you get used to it when you get to that level. Okay, so that will be this one. We have JS for JavaScript and CS for our external Starship that we have. Okay, now I'm going to copy this link so that when I'm saving my file to write our table inside, I will just paste it inside so that it will save in this folder. Okay, so now I create a new file, then I'm going to save it as table.html because it's for a table, so that when you are making reference of it, how to write a table, you can easily go there in the week 2 of your folder. Okay, so I'm going to just paste the path I took. Okay, then I'll name my file as table.html. So I save, then we copy our content here. Okay, okay, so that is the content of our page. Okay, so we can save it. Okay, so that is our table. Then the H2 is a header. Okay, so the headings you have, headings of the same, the way we have headings in Word documents is the same way. The biggest one start with H1, followed by H2, then we have H3, then we have H4. So based on the one that is specifying the size of the text that we have. So H2 means that we have a heading which, and headings are bold, they are thick black. Okay, unless you change the color, but they are thick black. So we have the heading to be HTML table. Then we start with our table tag. So like I said, we have table, then we have our tr, then we have the content of them. Okay, so now when we run, so we can go to our folder, we will see our page inside. Okay, then like I said, you can open it with a Mozilla because of the debugging feature. So we can open with Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, so that we can do some modification on the browser, so that we can see the effect if we are satisfied before we can do update on our page, the actual file. Okay, so as our Mozilla loads our file, we can continue. When it comes, then we just continue there. Okay, so this is the explanation we've talked about already, the T, R, T, H, and the TDs. Okay, so if I ask you what is a TH, you should know that That's the table heading that comes in the first row, so that the text in it will be bold. And the TDs are the columns. So each of the columns, so the children of the TRs are the TDs. So when you open the TD, you put the content inside, then you close it. Then you open the next column, you put the content inside, you close it. Then you open the next column, you put the content inside, then you close it. Okay. So let's say, okay, so our ATM has come. So now page has come. Now we didn't specify the width of our table because the star we're giving it a width of 100. Okay. Now let's press Fn, the function key 12. So Fn 12, so that we can do some modification of the star we have, so that you can see the effects of that star. Okay. So now if I click on the table, okay, now if I undo, if to uncheck it means you are removing that star on the browser, not on the file. Anything you do on the browser doesn't affect what you have on the file, so you have to go and do a change if you are satisfied with what you see on the browser. So if I uncheck here, you see that the table width has changed. So now the width is based on the content of the table. Okay, so the star of width of 100 makes it to take the entire screen. Okay, now if I uncheck the border collapse, okay, you see that it's going to be thick. So each of the columns will have their own borders, so that now the border is very thick. Okay, so now if you make this border collapse, you see that they are now all as one, so they are thinner. Okay, so based on what you are doing and the kind of style you have. Okay, now our TRs have the M chart. So the M chart will not affect our odd ones. So our first row is odd number, so our M will not affect, that CSS will not affect. But our second row is an even. So that star is over. That's what we are seeing over here. Our even chart is the same as 2n. Okay. Now when we undo it, you can see that the background is gone. So that's what the style is doing. So every m chart, 2n chart, or even so all the 2 seconds of the thing, it will give that background color. Change the background color of this one to, let's say, for example, black. If you change it to, let's say, black, okay. Now, if you change to black, the text is also black, so you have to change the color of the text. So let's give the color, let's say, white. Okay, so color of that space, we also give it white. Okay, so now you see that now those spaces are now white. Okay, so now we can move on. Okay, so this is the inline style of a table. So here we are giving the width in the table element is set, not as a star. Okay. So we talk about this one already. We talk about that one already. So we come to the cell that span. So the spanning is joining the cells together. So you can join two columns together and make them one column. And you can join a number of rows as well and make them as one row. Okay, so the joining of them is what we call the span. Okay, the column joining is called call span. COLSPAN. Okay, so you call the call span, then you specify the number of columns you want to join for that row. Okay, so for example, in this example, this is our first row, second row, third row. In our fourth row, the first and second columns are joined. So that one, when you write the first TD, you write call span is equal to 2, which means you are joining the two columns. Then you write our next which is this one, you put the values inside. Okay, so in this code, if you on the fourth one, we have the call span is equal to 2. It means we are joining on the fourth row, we are joining this and this row together. So we have one row, then we have this. So this will cover that one, then we have that. Now because we want our text total, okay, to be here, so we call it text aligned to the right. Now this page has a star which puts the tables in the left. That's why you are not seeing it. But if you copy and we paste it below our table and we refresh the page, you see that the total has been given test aligned to be right, so it will be at the right hand side. Okay, so now we will copy our second table. Okay, then we paste. Okay, so now when we run, we will just refresh our page. So when we refresh our page, so we scroll below, we will see that one. Okay, so now we can see that these two columns has been joined together, and because we have test align right, it has brought this one there, and we bold it with the B element is for bolding. So if you put a test between the B element, it will make it thick black, okay, or thick whatever color it is, it will make it thicker than the normal one, just to differentiate it from the other ones. So this is the core span joining two columns together. So you just write one of the column, then you write core span is equal to, then you specify how many of the columns in that row you are joining. Okay, now when you've done the remaining columns left, you just put them in their corresponding columns. Okay, so we continue. Now we also have the joining of together. So for example, in a table where maybe this, let's say if this is for salaries or school fees payment, then a table where this and this and this are for the same date, instead of writing 28 for this, 28 for that, 28 for that, you may decide to put everything here. Okay, so you may decide to put everything here, so they all be in one row. Okay, so here this column will have, this part will have, these rows will be joined together. So we have 1, 2, 3 rows joined together, but the rest will be on their own. Okay, so on that one, we can have this code over here. On the TDs where we need to join the rows, we will write them there. So when we join those rows, in the subsequent rows, we don't have to write their TDs because we've already joined them together. So the rest we will not write them there. Okay, so let's copy this and we paste it. Okay, so you copy this one to you paste it. Okay, then you can save it. Okay, now in the notes, remember the TD has joined the core span, so you have to separate it so that it sees it as a core span. Okay. Okay, I think the same with this one. Okay. So now when you save and you run, okay. So as you can see, this row, that row, and that row has been joined. This, the core span is equal to the cost, this one by this part, row span is 3. Okay, so it has joined all those 3 columns, their rows, so they all become one row instead of 1, 2, 3 rows in that column. Okay, now this one we've already talked about it. It joins the column. This one joins the columns in that row. So we have this column in the row of that column, and the row of that column, and the row of that column. They will all be joined together. Now you can also see that the text position of our tables are in the middle. Now you can also write this in another attribute we call vertical align. So when you make it vertical align top, it will make the text to start at the top. Okay, so like you said, it has moved this text. Initially it was in the middle, that is the default one. So if you want it to go to the top, you just apply vertical align top and it moves it to the top. Okay, so that is it for table. Now we are on hyperlink. like I explained earlier on, the hyperlinks are links you have on the page that when somebody clicks, it takes the person to another page. Now, how do you write hyperlinks? The hyperlink element is the A tag. So hyperlinks are for A. So you write A, so we have less than, then A, then greater than. Then like we said, when you open a tag, you close it. So we have less than slash A, then you close it. Now between those elements, we are going to write the text. So you write the text between those elements, okay, just like you write paragraph. So you write the text between the A elements, okay. Now in the A elements, then we have what we call the ref, okay. So here in the quotation where we have ref is equal to, you assign the link where you want when it's clear where it should go. Okay, so the where you want your page to go will come here. Okay, now if it's going to be of a web address, remember this is very important. If it's going to be a web address, you are supposed to add the HTTP or HTTPS. So if you don't know how to write it, just go to the web address, that address, and come and paste it there. Or just write HTTP. HTTPS are encrypted web address, so they have a certificate for encryption. But HTTP are a little bit less secure. Okay, so if you've written HTTP or HTTPS, now the browser sees it as a web link, an absolute URL. So when it clicks, it takes the person to that web address. But if you don't specify it and you leave the HTTP, even if you do it correct domain name and you leave the HTTP or HTTPS, it will see it as a file on your server. So you will get a file not found because you don't have google.com as a file on your desktop. So always remember, if your link is going to be absolute, is going to be a web address, add the HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, so these are example. So this is a link. So we had the HTTPS there. This is a link. So we add the HTTPS there. This is the absolute link. So you have the HTTPS. This is an absolute link. So we have the HTTPS. Okay. This is a file on our server. Okay. Or in our folder. So we don't need to add the HTTPS. So just the name, okay, of the file. So this one you see is as a local address or local URL, okay, or local link. So that one it will look for the file on that folder. Okay, so now we can copy and paste this in a new page. We can create as link. So we can create a new page. We call it link.html. So we separate it from the table example. Okay, so we can paste this one here. We call it link.html. Okay, so now on the website, the quotation character may not match the quotation you have on your computer, so you have to change them to match that you have on your computer. Okay, so quotation characters are different from each softwares and computers. So you change it to the one that matches with yours so that it sees it as a quotation. Okay, so we save. Okay, now when we run this page and we click, this should take us to our Google address. This should take us to our Facebook address. This should take us to Kuulchat address. This should take us to our Instagram address. This should take us to this one. It will be expecting a file on our phone in our folder. So if you don't have that file, it will give the error file not found. Okay. So now, like I said, this link is in a paragraph. That's why we put a paragraph. We put it in a paragraph. Okay. Now the ref is the address where you want when it's click, the person should be taken to. Okay. So you put it in the double quotation of the ref. Then the text to show with that when the person clicks, it goes to wherever he wants to go. Will also come here. Okay. So now let's go and open our HTML far with Mozilla. Okay, so we open it Mozilla. Okay, so that's what we are saying now. So you can, these are our links. Then by default, links are underlined and are given the color blue. Okay, and the visited links are given a different color, so that you know you've already visited that link. Okay, so if you don't want it to align, or you don't want it to have a unique color blue, then you have to style it. Okay, so now you see that when I click, it's supposed to take me to Google. So let's see if it takes me to google.com. Okay, now you can see that when I click, it's within the tab. Move to a different tab. So it's within the link inside, within the tab. Okay, you see that within the tab, we are having google.com. Okay, so it has one page to google.com. Okay, now if you are writing a website and you are giving a link that is not on your to somebody to click, it's advisable that you add an attribute to talk about it, so that when the person click, your page will be there, but it will open the external link in a different browser, so that the person can still go back to your page and continue the reading. Okay, if you don't do that, it will make it boring for the person to visit your site again. Okay, so we'll talk about how you can do it, so that when the person clicks, it opens a new tab. Okay, so we've talked about this. Then this is what we are talking about it. If you don't have the HTTP in it, then it will give you the file, your file was not found. So let's change one of the address. So let's change it, our google.com. We remove the HTTPS, then we save, then we refresh, then we click again, then we see what will be the outcome. Okay, so now we remove the HTTP there. So when we click, you see it says file not found, because it's looking for a file by name google.com. So it's not going to that link. So you can see that it is the path of my folder. So it's looking for a file by name google.com on my machine, because I don't have the HTTP or HTTPS in that link. Okay, so that demonstrates that. Okay, we've talked about this ones already. So by default, the visited websites are given a purple color. A link unvisited link, the link you haven't visited before, they are underlined and they are given blue color. And the active link, a link that active is when you click and it's about to go. The active link are normally red. Okay, underline and red. So now we need to style it so that we will remove the underline and we'll give it the color of our choice. Now to remove the underline, we use the text decoration. Okay, so the text decoration is either underline or none. So by default it is underlined. So now you want to change it to none. So you write a, then curly bracket, then the attribute is text decoration. The value we want to give it is none. Then you close your semicolon. Okay, now by default the color is blue, so we have to change the color to. So we have a, then color, we specify black. Now if your web page, the color text is not completely black, but it's using the color code, then your link should have the same color as your body color you specify in your body, so that there won't be any difference between the link and the text again. If you just make it black and in your body you specify the color to be a different color code, then you could see that even though they are black, one may be fainter than the other. Okay, so you use the same color of your body to the color of your link, so that the text will all be of the same color. There won't be any difference. Okay, now let's try that, then we'll refresh our. So now we want to add the star. So now let's go the normal way of writing our page. So we have HTML, then we have head, then we close it. Okay, now in the head we have the star. Okay, then we close it. Okay, now in the star we are going to style our A. So we have our A. Okay, now we said our A test decoration should be none. So test decoration, we said it's supposed to be none. Okay. Then we said it should have a color of black. So you have color black. Okay. So we save, then we run. We refresh our page. Okay. So now you can see that now our links are black and there's no lines there. Okay. So that's what the attribute or the style does. Okay. So we continue. Then we have the hover. So the hover, the dot hover is when the mouse hovers on the link. So a hover is when the mouse is placed on the link. Okay, so the column hover is the attribute you write if the mouse is placed on the link. So whatever you want to happen or the attribute you want to add to that element, when the mouse is hovered or placed over, is what we call the hover. So we have link, then column, then hover. Okay, so that will make it the attribute to specify is when it has been hovered upon. So for example, if we want that when the person hovers, put the mouse on it, should we test the underline? The link is supposed to be underlined, then we have test declaration. This time it will be underlined. Then we have the color blue. So when the person click and puts the mouse over the link, then it will take the color will change to the test declaration will be underlined. So there will be a line beneath the link. Then color will also change to blue. Okay, so based on what you want to you apply it on the hover. So the hover, the element column hover is when the mouse is placed over that element. What should happen? Then you will write the attribute on how you want it to happen. Okay, so let's add that feature so that when our links are hovered, so hover, we will make our text decoration this time to be underlined. Okay, so we have text decoration, okay, underline. Okay, then we save, we refresh, then we see the effect. Okay, so now you can see that our links are being underlined when we hover the mouse over it. Okay, so all our links are being underlined when we hover the mouse over it. Okay, okay, so that's it. So we continue. Now, if we want to give it a color blue, so when it's being hovered, then we can give it a color of blue or red or yellow, whatever color you want. So color blue when it's being hovered. Okay, so we refresh. Okay, so now we can see when it's being hovered, we have a blue color and they are being underlined. So when it's being hovered, blue color and underline, blue color and underline. Okay. Okay, so if you want to also start active and visited pages too, then use the column, then the name active, then visited to column, then visited. Okay, so now we want to give attribute for our visited. So links which has been visited, we want them to have a purple color. Okay, so let's say you want them to, so color, or let's say you want them to be red. Okay, visited page, so pages that we visited, if we want them to be red, the link that we visited, so links that we visited their pages already and you want it to be red, so we went to google.com. So when you refresh, google.com is supposed to be red because we've been to that page already. Okay, so Kuulchat media is red. Then when we go to the Google, okay, this was the one the page was not found. Okay, so because it was not found, we haven't visited it. So the visited is still missing. So let's add to the normal Google. Now we went previously. Okay, okay. When we refresh, because we visited Google, the previous lesson is going to be red. Okay, so this is our website we visit. You see that they've changed to red. Those ones that we haven't visited, they are still the color we've assigned to it. Okay, now the active one, normally it's of no, people don't use it that much, but the visited and the buffer is what we use, because the active, if you are not that observant, you not even see that it is there, because it's when you click and it's about to move. So if your link is fast or the movement is so swift, you not even see that there is anything like that there. So if you make the active maybe low, so immediately you click before it moves, that's when the active takes into effect. So let's say for example, if we make it an active, okay, so let's change it because the river is already blue. So let's make it to pink. Okay, okay. So the active, when you click, you see it change. So when you click, it change a mid-letter color before it start to move to wherever you want it to move. Okay, so that's it. Now because we've also visited the Instagram now, you see that the color of the link has changed to the color red again. Okay, so now we continue. So we have the target attribute. So the target attribute is when the link they click, how do you want it to be displayed? Is it within the same window tab, or it should open a different tab? Okay, now by default it is set. It's within the tab, the current page the person is, so it will open the link in that page. Okay, now if you want it to open a new tab, a new window, a new tab, then use the target to be underscore blank. Okay, now the parents and the top they are all similar. Okay, they are all within the same window, so you don't see the difference that much. But what you need to know is the underscore blank. And then this is advisable for pages that are not on your page, so that your page will still be there. Then the person will be directed to a different tab for that page. Okay, so now all our external pages we have, Google is not our website, so we give them a target of blank. So we have target is equal to blank, blank. Okay, so we can copy and paste all those ones that are not on our website we are designing. So here we have target blank, this one too we have target blank, this one too we have target blank. Okay, now this is a file on our website, so that one we won't, when the person click, because it's still on our same website, then that one the target should not be blank, so the person will just be directed to that file, because we have a header that the person can go back to our home page or wherever it came from. So that one we don't need a target of blank. Okay, so now let me refresh the page, then we click on the link, then we can see the effect of the target blank. Okay, so now when I click on this, it's supposed to open a new tab. Okay, so you could see that if I click on it, it will open a new tab, like I said. So let's see. So you can see that it's open a new tab here, original bar here. So the user is still on my page, but the link has moved to a different page. Okay, so if I click on this one too, you see that it's opening another tab here. Okay, now if I click on the one that is supposed to be within my folder, then it will not open a new tab because I haven't made it target to be blank. So if I open it, it's supposed to the file within the same tab. Okay, go to the sign up file, but because I don't have that file, that's why it's saying file not found. Now if it was supposed to be on the server, it will open it within that tab, while the other ones will be open in tab. Okay, so I believe it's clear. So we move on. Okay, so now we are on making an image a link. So you can also make an image a link by placing the link elements. So you put the image between the link elements. For example, most often when you are designing a website, it's advisable that when there is a logo, when the person clicks on the logo, it should take the person to the home page. So in the logo of your page, you put the link to the home page between your logo image, so that when the person clicks on the logo, it takes the person back to the home page of your page. Okay, so in an example, let's say for example we have a logo in the images folder. So we have this image there, then we put the link between put the image between our link. So we have our link ref will be the website of the home page, then we have the logo of it, and we have our P for our link. Okay, so now you can put an image in your folder. It can be a logo of a company or your own picture or whatever picture it is. Then your path should be the path of your image. So if you have your image to be a name and its extension like we've learned already, then you list the path there. Then you put the link between around that image. Then you try and test and let's see how you see it. So I'm also going to test. I'm going to put an image in my folder so I test it. Okay, so I have put the logo of Kuulchat in my images folder. So now I'll have the code for redirecting the users to the Kuulchat website when the logo is clicked. Okay, so if I copy this code here, okay, so if I put it, okay, so now we can continue with our body. This is supposed to be in our body. And we can close our body. And we close our HTML. Okay, so now we can make this one like the logo and the link. Okay, so this quotation we need to change it because it doesn't match with a machine quotation. Okay, then it's supposed to be a space here. This quotation to the link, so I have to change it. Same with this one. Okay, okay, so this is the link. You wrap it around our image. So if someone clicks on the image, goes to the home page. This is just an example. So we just put kuulchat.com here. So when the person clicks on the logo, their logo, then goes to the home page. So let's assume we are designing their website. So when you click on the logo, it's supposed to take you to the home page. So that's an example of putting having the link for an image, so that when somebody clicks on that image, then the link is here. So let's refresh our page. Okay, so that's the logo. So now we put a link, we wrap a link around our image. So when somebody clicks on that image, then it's supposed to go to the link that we specified. So like you see, that's okay. So that's the ideally. If you are writing you're building a website where there is a logo for the company on the header at the top, then it's advisable that when the person clicks on that logo, it takes the person to the home page. Okay, so that's what we look at now. We continue with the lecture. Now, sometimes too, you may also want to have a link that will open an email software on the person's machine or phone, so that the person can just type in the email information instead of now going to write the email address. Okay, so you use the email address as a link. So how do we do that? Now you do it this way. In the ref of your link, you have mail to, then a column, then you specify the value of your email, so that when the person clicks on it, instead of writing the address to sending the email to, the address to will automatically be inserted with your email you specified here. So when the person logs into the email software, you can easily send the email directly without necessarily having to retype the email address again. Okay, so now that's what we use the email to. So we can also, but remember, if the person doesn't have a mail client, like a client to open an email or a software to open an email on the computer or on the phone, when the person clicks, it will not see anything because the browser will not have any appropriate software for it to open that email. Okay, so I change my quotations to match with my computer. Okay, so I save it. So now when I refresh and I click on email S, okay, so this is the email S. So if I click on email S, okay, now you can see that it is opening the mail server here. So the person will log into the mail server, then he can send the email. Okay, so that is it for the mail link. So the mail link, you just have it's a normal link, but you just have mail to. The link is going to mail to, then the column. Then you specify the value of the email you want the person to write to when the person clicks on the link. Okay, now we are on adding link to a button. Okay, now sometimes you may want a person to click on a button. For example, if you have a sign up button, then you want the person to click, then it goes to the page for signing up. Okay, so my application for the mail to, okay, so it says I don't have the mail server for that or something. Okay, so in the if you have a button, or let's say for example a sign up, then the person clicks on the sign up, you want the person to go to the sign up page so that the person can do the signing up or any other lesson. So the idea is that you can have a link to any element, whether button or whether a div, whether a paragraph or whatever it is. You can have a link of it, but you need to write a JavaScript for that. Okay, and the function to call for click is on click. So you have on click in the element. So here the element is a button. So you have on click on it, then equal to. Then in the double quotation, you write this JavaScript function. So you have window dot location is equal to. Okay, then you specify the link where when the person clicks on the button or the element, it will take the person to. You specify it in the single quotation. Okay, so remember a double quotation comes here and ends here. Now in the window dot location is equal to the value you specify should be in the single quotation, and you specify it over here. Okay, so when the person clicks, then it will take the person, it will be like a normal link that we write. So you can copy this one, then you can also paste it somewhere here. I change my double and single quotation. Okay, so I save, then I refresh. Okay, so the button. So when I click on it, you see that it's taking me to the link I specified. Okay, so that's an example. Question is, if I want this same click to go to a different, to go to open a new tab instead of being in the same window, then how do I do that? Then that one we can do it in a different way. But before we come back to that, I would like to explain something. Okay, so on the window dot location, you can also have the document dot location. They all work the same way. So either you have window dot location or document dot location, they all work the same way. So both functions are of the same type. Okay. Now for a local link to, you can just use instead of the actual HTTP, you can just specify the file name over there. So if it's about sign up page, just the name and the name of the file or the page for the sign up is this, then you just write the name of the file here. So when the person clicks, it goes to that page. Okay. So you can either use document.location or window.location. They all do the same thing. Okay, now in a situation where you want the person to move to a different tab, to use a different tab to open, then you have to use window.open. So the on click in the double quotation, the function that you have to call is window.open, then bracket. Then the window.open, it takes two value in the single quotation, and the first input is supposed to be the link where you want it to go. Okay, so you put the link here. If it is an absolute URL, if it's a HTTP URL, you specify it here. If it's a file, you also write it here. Then in the second single quotation column, you write underscore blank. Okay, so underscore blank will make it to open in a new tab. Okay, so let's also copy and paste this block of line. Okay, so in that example, okay, so let's say okay, so okay, so if it's for sign up button, but we don't want it to, we want it to open a new tab, then we also write it. Okay, now if it is for maybe an actual link, let's say we make it Google. So if it's an absolute link with the HTTPS, we just put it here. Okay, okay, then let's say search on Google. Let's say search on Google. Okay, save. So when we run this same window.open, we open the link by to open it in a new tab. Okay, so you see that it's opening it in a new tab. Okay, so that's how you can also use it. You can also use a window.open, but with that one you can specify the blank. By document or location you can't specify. So if you want a blank, a new tab, then you have to use a window.open or the JavaScript function window.open to achieve that. Okay, now if you don't specify the ref of a link, it will not see it to be a link. So when somebody clicks on it or hovers the mouse on it, the person will not see the mouse change into a hand. Okay, and any other elements like a P, for example. So if you write on click listener, on click on any of the elements, by default, because they are not a link with a ref, the cursor will not change to a hand. Okay, so you need this attribute for the link, so that even if you haven't specified the ref in the link, or if the elements you are using, if the element you are using is not a link, but you added a click listener to it, so you want it to be seen as a link, okay, then you have to use the star, cursor, then semicolon, pointer. Okay, so this one will make it look like a link. So when the person clicks, the cursor will change to a hand. Okay, so let's try this. First of all, you will remove the star there. Then you will see, you run and see the effect. Then we'll put the star there so that you can see what we are talking about. Okay, so I'm going to take off the star for now, so that when I run, you can see what I'm talking about. So now I've taken the cursor pointer star attribute there. Okay, so you can see that contact is. Now when I put the mouse on it, even though it's a link that when the person clicks, we add that attribute on click on the P, and we've made it like look like a link. If the person clicks, it will work. You see that it works. It goes to the contact dot even because it didn't see the page. That's but if it's a link which exists, you see that the page will come. So even though it's working as a link, you see the cursor is not seeing it. The cursor is not changing to a hand. So you need that star cursor pointer to make it look like a link, so that any person who hovers on it will know that the person can click on it for it to direct it to a next lesson. So when we refresh, now we put the attribute cursor pointer. Now you can see that the cursor has changed to the hand, indicating that it's a link that the person can click. Okay, so when you have if you have an element, you are making it look like a link using a window dot location, then you have to use the attributes cursor dot pointer. Okay, even actual, if you have a link and you haven't specified the ref, for example, if this link don't have a ref, it will not, it will not change. So I've taken the ref on the visit Google website. Now let's refresh and see. Okay, so where is the visit Google website? You see that because I have taken the ref value, there is now the cursor does not change into a link. Okay, so in the case where sometimes you are putting the JavaScript there, so you don't need the ref. Okay, if you put the ref there, it will go to that link there. If you are using a JavaScript and you want to call the script, later on the course, in this course, we'll talk about JavaScript. If you want to call the script, then the ref is not needed, so you may not have the ref there, but you want someone to see it as a link, then that one too, you can have your attribute for the cursor pointer attribute on the link. So you can have it like this, cursor pointer over there. So now if I refresh and I click on, I hover on visit Google website, you can see that it has changed to a cursor. Okay, so now if you are using an element as a link with the window dot location on click is equal to window dot location or window dot open or whatever it is, now you have to style it so that the cursor also changes to hand, so that users who are using just your site knows that it's a link they can click on. Okay, so now let's continue. Now we have the titles. So in earlier on, I told you what the title is for. So a small balloon or bubble appears when somebody hovers on the link. So that's what we call the titles. So in the title, we use a title attribute. So you just write title is equal to, then click here to whatever text you put here. So when a person hovers on that link, then the text in the bubble is going to show. So for example, if I put a title on any of our link we have here, where we have the email list. Okay, so here, if I put a title on our link, okay, so if I put a title here, so title is equal to, then in the double quotation, you specify the value of it. So if I refresh this page where we have email list, now you can see that there is a bubble with a round base and it says click here to send us an email. Okay, so that bubble is what we refer to as the title. So whatever you text you put to describe the link so that the person knows what the link is about is what we call the title. Okay, so title can even be on an image or a link. So just a description when a person hovers the mouse, and that's what we call the title. Okay, so now we are done with the link. We are on list. Okay, so like I explained earlier on, a list is a number of items you have to display. Okay, so in Word we call them bullets, and we have an ordered list and ordered list. The unordered lists are the bullets, the normal bullets we have on Word. Then The ordered lists are the ones that start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or A, B, C, D, or V, and the rest. Those ones are ordered. But the ones we have the bullets are the ones we call unordered. So unordered. So U unordered is so U for unordered. Then list is L. So unordered lists have the element UL. Unordered, then the list UL. Then ordered lists have the element OL. Ordered, then list, so OL. Okay. Now their items, the element is Li. So all the items you see on the list, they will be in the Li. So each item will be on Li. Each item. So like for example, if you are writing a list for this one, our mother tag is going to be UL. So we open less than UL, then greater than. So all these ones will be in Li. So we have Li, then we will type item, then we close our Li. Then we have another Li, we type item, we close it. We have another Li, we type item, we close it. We have another Li, we type item, we close it. And when we've listed all our items, then we close our unordered list. Then we close less than slash UL, then we close it. Okay. So the same thing applies with the ordered list, just that instead of UL, it will be OL. Okay. So now that's how I explain this. So now this is an example of an ordered list where you have home, about us, our services, contact us. Okay, so this is a list. Later on, we will style it to make it like a menu of a website. So later on, in the course of this week lessons, we will style it to look like a menu. Okay, so now we can copy this file, like I've explained. The mother is a UL, so we have a UL, we close it. And each of the items are in Li. So we have Li, we have another Li. Then we have a text which are linked. So we put a link around each of the text, so that when the person click on it, it will move the person to the other pages as well. Okay, so we will copy this one. Then we are going to create a new file we will call UL. Okay, so where we'll put this example there. Okay, so new Control N, Control Alt S, like we did in week 1, how to create new file. So it's going to be ul.html for this example. So ul.html. Okay, then we can copy this code there. Of course, you can start with the head and HTML head and the rest, but we are not writing stars and stars. This is just a simple demonstration, so we can just have it for now like this. Okay, so if you copy codes from the website, you try to make changes, because some of the characters and some of the text are doing. Like the ref, it's supposed to be a separation between the A and the ref. In the double quotation, the text of the double quotation text on the website is different from your computer probably. So you may need to delete that one and change it to the double quotation of your computer. Okay. Okay. So now we will save this, then we will run it. So we go to our folder, then we open with Mozilla Firefox. Okay, so we will open with Mozilla Firefox. Okay, so that's our list. So we have home, about us, our services, contact us. Okay, now because they are links and we haven't styled them, that's why you are seeing the blue and the underline. We've already talked about this. So later on, when we want to use it for our main, we'll start these ones. Okay, but what we want to emphasize is how do you write your list. So all these ones are in our Li. So we have the first li is this one, and li with a link inside, and the text of the link is hope, and li with a link inside, the text of the link is about us, and li with a link and the text of the link is our services, and li with a link and the text of the link is contact us. Okay, so now we continue. Now the ordered list, like I said, is just OL. So OL for ordered list, and this is just a heading to describe it. Okay, so we will also create another file. We will call it OL for the ordered list. So new and OL. We have OL.html. Okay, so now polish it a little bit to look nice on our code. Okay, so I've already described what the H2 is. It's the heading. So we have H1, H2, H3, H4. So then the H2 is the next biggest one. Okay, so we have Professor Anani, Professor Aluti, Mr. Ashon. So we save it, then we will go to our folder, then we run it with the Mozilla for our overall. So open with Firefox. Okay, so we've seen the ordered list. So this is just the heading, and these are the 1, 2, 3, and the rest. Okay, so now we continue with the other types of the ordered list. Okay, so we have types of ordered list. We have type 1. So type 1 starts with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the rest. Type capital A starts with capital A, capital B, capital C, capital D. And type A, we have small a, small b, small c, small d, and the rest. Then type I starts with the Roman numeral capital I, capital IV, V, and the rest. Then type small I starts with small I. Then the next one will be small I. The next one will be small I. The next one will be small iv. Then V, and the rest. Okay. So now let's, by default, last we saw it is of the type 1. Okay, so you can just you copy the same code and try all the types. Okay, here is already type 1, but we can still specify that it's of the type 1. So type 1. Okay, so now we can copy this and we change to all the other types so you can see how they are. Okay, so this one you can call it our type capital A. Then the next one we can call it type our small a. And the next one we can call it type our capital I. And the next one we can call it type small I. Okay, so small I. So we save, then we refresh our page. Okay, so you see that this one is A, B, C. A small a, small b, small c, and I, and small I, and I. Okay, so that's it for the ordered list. Okay, now we are on the start. Okay, now for the ordered one, especially the ones with the numbered. So the numbered one, you can write where to start from. This one is only available for the numbered one. It's not available on the A, B, C, D, and the rest. So you can use it on the type 1 and the type I, or capital I and the capital I, small I and the capital I and the type 1. Those are the only ones you can use the start on. So when you specify the start, it will specify what number the normally should start. Okay, so for example, if you write start here to be, you recall your Roman numerals. If I write 10 here, what will be the Roman numerals for 10? I hope you haven't forgotten. So if I write start here, we are starting at 10. Okay. So here I can start at, let's say, that one also 10. Okay. So 10. So you have start. Okay. Okay. So do you record the Roman numerals for 10? Okay. So this one will be what? Okay. If you don't record, no problem. When you run it, you see. Okay. So 10 is x. Okay. So like this one, you can see that it started from 10, 11, 12. And this one, x, xi, xii, xii. So this one is small letters and this one is capital letters. Okay. So that's for the starting when you specify the number you should start from. And that one is only available for our type 1 and type capital I and type small I. Okay. For you to be able to see that what I said is true, you can put a start here on these characters as well. So let's say you write start C. Let's say start C. Let's see how it goes. I think I've tried it before, it never worked, so but let me try it and see if it works. Okay, so you can see that it's not starting there. So that one is not available for these ones. It's only available for the non-numerous. Now we have the start attributes over there. Okay, it says C believe. That's why I'm doing this so that you can see it. I know if I don't do it, some of you may not do it. Okay, so that confirms that the start is not on the alphabet. It's only on the numericals. Okay, so we continue. Then we have nested list. So a nested is something in another thing. So a nested list is a list in another list. So in the nested list, you have a list, and that li, you can also have another list inside. Then you can also have another list in another list. So you can have as many lists in another list as many as you want based on what you are doing. Okay. So now when we copy this one is ordered list. So when we copy this one into our OL page, then we see that here in the T has another list inside. Okay, so it doesn't matter what kind of list is inside. You can also make this one on ordered list as well. So for example, I can put another one here. Each one, the sub one is going to be on ordered list. So here I can make it an unordered list. Okay, for the sub. Okay, so it doesn't matter, but you can have the key things that you can have a list in another list. So in the li, you can start another list again. Okay, even here too, if there is another sub, you can start another list again. So based on what you are doing. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so you can see that this one is a numbered list. So it starts black T, green T, and this one is an unordered list. So it starts with a bullet. Okay, so we continue. So you have the description list. So the description list gives you the opportunity to describe a list. So for example, in my favorite teachers, if I want to describe the kind of courses or subjects those teachers teach, I can use a descriptive list so that I can have the description of the subject they teach. So for example, the element for the description list is DL, description and list. So DL, okay. Now the term, each of the items, the terms, we use DT. So each of the items are like the way we have the LI, they are named as DT. Then their descriptions are named as DD. Okay, so their descriptions are named as DD, and the actual terms or the actual list are named as DT. And the overall matter is named as DL. Okay, description list. So we can copy this one and create a new file. We'll call it dl.atl. Okay. So we have new this, we call it dl.atl. .html. Okay, now we can style it nicely. Okay, so now also start this one nice. Okay, so we can open it in the Mozilla Firefox. We have the open with Mozilla Firefox. Okay, so now you can see, so we have our list over here. Then we have the description. It has indented it to a little margin to describe it. So this is our DD. So our DD is this one. This is our DTs. So DT, DT, then DD, DD, DD. Okay, so that's for our description list. Okay, so we move on. So starting the list. So the unordered list we have now by default it is Dix. The bullet you have seen, the black bullet, it is called Dix. So by default the URL it has each of the lists will have a Dix star. But if you want it to be in the circular form, you can specify it to be a circle. If you want it to be a square, you can specify it to be a square. If you don't want any of the bullets around it, then you can specify it to be none. Okay, so the attribute or the property is what we call list star type. Okay, so in the list star type, you only specify the list star type. You specify what kind of type you want it to be. So if you want it to be circle in the list star type, like it has been done here, star is equal to the list star type is specify the value to be none. If you want it to be circle, here will be circle. If you want it to be square, here will be square. And if you don't want it to be any bullet at all, here will be none. Okay, so let's copy this star into our URL page. Then we can style it to a different, we can change it to a different type. So in our URL page, we put our star on this one. Okay, now the quotation doesn't match, so we need to change it. Okay, now let's refresh our URL page we have over here. So all the pages is for URL. Okay, this is for the URL. So now when we, because we made it none, this bullet will vanish because it is none. Okay, so now you see now it vanished. So now let's change it to circle. Okay, so now we change the none to circle and we refresh our page. So circle. And we save and refresh your page. Okay, so now you can see that the bullets are circle. So now we change it to square. Change it to square. And we save. And we will refresh. Okay, so now you can see that the bullets are square. Okay, so that's it. Then for what we'll be doing in the future, we don't need the bullet, so we will change it back to none. Okay, so we change it back to none. Then we save. So when you refresh, they will all be vanished. Okay, so that's it. So we continue. So we've done all this. So the nested list, we talk about it already. So on the list, you can have another list inside, like we did for the ordered list. Okay, so here too, you can either have an ordered list. Okay, you can have OL/OL, so that one will be numbered 1, 2. But if you want it to, you can just have this bullet list on ordered list over there. Okay, now horizontal list with CSS. Now if you want your list to be in the horizontal, like you saw they are all vertical. All our lists are vertical. So they are all vertical. So if you want them to be horizontal, like home comes here, about S comes here, our services come here, contact S comes here, then you have to style it with a CSS. Okay. So now to style it, you use a float left. So you use a float left to style it so that they all be horizontal instead of now vertical. Okay. So now in this code, these ones have been styled. So we have the list style to be none for the UL. Okay, it has a margin of 0, padding of 0, and you have overflow. Okay, so it seems like this is the first time you are seeing the overflow. Now, overflow is when the text goes beyond the content. Then, if you make it overflow hidden, then the text that goes beyond the boundary will be hidden from the side, so it will not be seen. So that's the overflow hidden. Okay. Then you have a background color of red. Like I told you, background color attribute, it can either be just background or you add dash the color to it. They are all the same. Okay. Then now our link, our A is by default. It is inline. An inline block, you cannot give them padding top and padding bottom. You can only give them padding left and right. So to make it possible that you can padding both the top and the bottom, you have to change the display attribute to the block. In the subsequent week, we'll talk about the displays, the type of displays we have, and we'll write some HTML code so that you can see their effect. So display block makes it possible for your A to get padding top and padding bottom. Okay, so this one, so when you run the code, we'll play with our Mozilla this and then you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, then the A hover, like we said, hover is when you hover on the element. Okay, now when you are writing the star, okay, then you want what you are writing should affect the other a particular child in a mother, then you have to do it from the rank. So the mother comes first, then the star for that child follows. Okay. So if, for example, this can also be written as UL, and there's a space, then LI, then there's a space, then A, then column, then hover. Okay. So if you are writing an attribute that affects the child of a particular parent, then the parent comes first, then the attribute for the child, the star for the child also comes like this. So here it means that the A in the LI, so other A's that are not in the LI, this star will not affect it. Okay, so these stars only affect A's which are in the LI. Okay, it says that when you hover on it, they should have opacity of 0.8. Okay, now opacity is a transparency put on the surface. So every object has an opacity of 1. So by 1 you have the thickest. So when it's being reduced to 0 point something, then it becomes fainter. So the lower it is, the more fainter it is. So this is saying that when we put our mouse in our link, our A in our li, we should reduce the opacity to 0.8, so it becomes a little bit fainter than the rest, so that they will know that there is a link there you can also click. Okay, so this is what we have. So we can copy this code in our UL, but this time, because it's a menu, because we are styling it into a menu form, we can copy it and name the file as menu. Okay, so here we'll copy this one, then we'll save it in the new file we will call as menu.html. Okay, so we create a new file, we call it menu.html. Okay. Okay, so this double quotation matches with my machine now, so I don't have to change it. Okay, so now, like I explained, these are the UL stars, and the LR are filtered so that they will be horizontal. Then our link is blocked so that we can have padding top and padding bottom. Then we have attribute for our A, so that when the A is hovered, then the A will have a opacity of 0.1, 0.8. Okay. Now you can also see that your A has been given an attribute of text declaration none and a color, so that the default ones will not affect it. Okay. So now when we go to our folder and we run this, Mozilla. Okay, so now you can see our menu. You can see that when I hover it, the opacity, it becomes a little lighter. The text becomes a little bit lighter. So that's opacity we are talking about. So it makes it like different from the other ones. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to call my FN12. So the function key 12, so that I can make some few changes. So we can see the effect of setting star that we did. I told you the essence of our block. Okay, for A, the essence of our block. Now I'm going to uncheck the block star so that you can see the essence of it. Now if I uncheck it, you see that the padding top and padding bottom will not work for our A. When we uncheck it, we didn't do it display to the block. Okay, so you can see that it only has a left and the right padding. The padding top and the padding bottom are they vanish. Okay, that's why we need to give them display block. Okay, now we're giving it like a color of white. So by default, we say all links are given a blue color. So if you don't specify the color of the link in your li, then you have the default color. So that's why we have the white here. Okay, now the text align center is just to center the text inside. Okay, even though because our A is it has taken the entire space, so we don't even need to center because it has taken that entire space. Okay, so the padding, like I told you, is the inner boundary we have for the A. So if you uncomment it, you see how it is. Okay, so the padding is just to give it an inner boundary of it. Okay, then test the equation we said now. If not now, they will be underlined. Okay, so we specify it here now. Okay, then our menu, we've given it a background of red. This is our URL. Our URL, we've given it a background of red. Okay, then we've also given the list style of none. If not now, you see the dots around there. Okay, so like when I see the dots around there, because they are not none. Okay, so while we said they are none, so their dots vanish from there. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so now we're on the div tag. So what are div tag? Like I told you, the div are like a divisions you have on your page. So the sections you have on your page. So when you are designing a page, you can put the pages in sections. Let's take for example the Kuulchat.com on the web design page. Let's see how many sections they may have. So here they may have a section for the header. Okay, and the header too, there will be a container that will center this part of the distance so that it doesn't start from here. Okay, there can be a center div that starts, that will make it to be centered in the center from this dimension. Okay, then this can be another container or another section or another div. Okay, then this can be another div which take the entire width of your screen where we put the banner image there. Okay, then we can have here, we have three divisions. So here there can be one division that will contain this one, aligned with another division that will contain the content of this one, then align with a division that will take the content of this one. Okay, so that's what we refer to as a div. So the divs are the sections of your page. So if you want to create sections of your page, we use the div. Okay, now in most websites or web designers, now if they center a div, they normally call it containers. Okay, so you can put any content into the div like I've explained to you. So the divs are just the sections you have. Now divs are normally styled using the class or an ID. So in the subsequent slide, we'll talk about slides and the IDs and the class. Okay. Now by default, divs have the display block, so they take the entire width. So if you want a div to have a shorter width, then you have to give it a width which is not 100%. So by default, they take 100% of the width. Okay. Now position divs. Now this week we will only talk about centering the div. Okay. While the subsequent week we'll talk about how you put the divs, like 3 divs on one row and the rest, just like it is on this website. You can see that you have the left side, they are having container, and you have some contents in the middle, then you have another content at the right hand side. Okay, so that will be next week. We'll talk more about that. Okay, but now today we'll be talking about centering a div. Okay, so to center a div, it must have a width less than 100%, because the 100% means it's covering the entire width. So if you want to center it, you have to have a width which is less than 100%. Then to have a margin right and margin left auto. So in the attribute for margin right, it's supposed to be auto. The attribute for margin left is supposed to be auto. Okay, so for example, if I want to center a div with a background color of red and a width of 900 pixels, I will write the following HTML code. So I'll write div style is equal to background. The background is red, width is 900 pixels, margin left is auto, margin right is auto. Then I'll just write the text there, center div. Okay, so now when you run your code, this will be centered. Okay, now we'll come to see an example. So I don't need to write it now. When we get there, we'll write an example. Okay, so now most web designers uses the class by name container. So for centered div, they normally call it containers. Some also call it row. Okay, so they name it by a class. So what is a class? That's what we are going to talk about it. Now, a class is an attribute. So you use an attribute, you write a list of attributes, then you give it a unique name. Then that name, if any element refers to that name, it will have all the attribute that class that you define has. Okay, so the class is declared as a dot. So if you are declaring a class, you start with a dot, then you give the class a name. So you have a dot, then the class will have a name. So the name you want to give to the class, okay, then in your curly bracket, you write the list of attributes that class should have. Okay, just like the way we attribute our body, the way we attribute our P and the rest, is the same way we write a list of attributes for that class by that name. Okay, now how do you refer to a class? Now for an element to refer to the class, you just write in the element tag, like the way we write star and other thing. Instead of a star, this time you write it class. So class is equal to, then you, in the double quotation, you mention the name of the class. Okay, so for example, if you have this class here, container, you have width of 900 pixels, you have margin right auto, margin left auto. Now you can call that class by just saying class is equal to, then you refer to the name of the class. Okay, so now it will have this attribute listed in the class, having the of 900 pixels, or having the margin right of auto, and having a margin left of auto. Okay, so now let's briefly talk about the IDs. Okay, so the ID is in the subsequent one. So let's test our example for our class. So here we can create a page, we can call it div.html to show the centered div example. Then we create a new page, we can call it div.html. Okay, so now we have our class here. So that's the name of our class. We said a class should have a dot and a name for that class. And like any other attribute, the way we list it is all the attributes are supposed to be in the curly bracket. Then you list all the attributes for that class. Now, if you want to make reference to that class, On the element you want to make reference to, you just have class is equal to then the name of the class. Okay, now you can start the class if you want. Okay, so now when we run this code, so we go to our folder, we run it in, we open it with Mozilla Firefox. So when we run it, we see that our div has been centered. Okay, so now this div has been centered in the middle. Okay, so we can call our F12 so that we can change the width of our div so that it can have a feel of what we are talking. Okay, so I will change it to a percentage instead of a pixel this time. So a width can also be the percentage. So this one I can give the percentage of. So you see, without a width, it's taking the entire boundary. So if I give it a percentage of maybe 80%, okay. So if I give it a width of 80%, you can see that it has been centered. We have space here, we have space here. Now if I change the 80%, we can see that it will be changing. Okay, it will change. So you adjust the width to the satisfaction of how you want your page to be and the position of that div. Okay, adjust it. So this has been centered in the middle. Okay, so those divs are normally most web designers. If you download a template, if you see a container, it's just a centered div with that width. So you can also adjust the width as you want it. And it has a margin right auto, margin left auto. And if I uncheck this attribute, then you see how it has moved to the right hand side because you don't have margin auto. And if I do this one, then you see how it is. Okay, so both the left and the right margins must be auto before it will be able to center them. Okay, so we move on. So we see this one. So that's it. Okay, now multiple class. So multiple elements have multiple class. So we can have another element and we can call the same class name. So we can call it the same class name. So it should not be any problem. Okay. Then you can also have you can have two or more three classes. Then one container can refer to all these classes inside. So let's say, for example, in this example, there is a class called green BG and there is a class called container. You can see that these div call this class and at the same time call the second class. So when you are having multiple classes, you only separate them in the space. So you just separate them in the space. So when you write the first class, you can separate it. Then write the second one. If there are 3, 4, and the rest, you just separate them by spaces. Okay. And each of the attributes of that class will affect that element. Now, if the attributes are the same, then the browser will use override that one. So it will override, I think, the first one, and the last attribute will override the previous one. So that's how it works. Okay. So let's add this one to our code here by creating another background. You can see another class. You can call it, let's say, pink, or let's say green. Let's use the example in the slide. So green region. Okay. So in the green region, we can just take off this star, which is the background red. So we can call it here green region. Okay. Now if I refresh my what am I? Oh, okay. Sorry, I haven't put the attribute. Okay. So I haven't finished with the class. So background is green. Okay, like I told you, programming. If you miss, that's why I said when you open a tab, if you open a curly bracket, you close it. If you open a tab, you have to close it because sometimes you forget. Then when you refresh your page, then you wonder what is happening. Okay, so now you can see that it has been centered. Okay, Now, if you call a class and you write a style on it, the style will override the class attribute. For example, here this class has a background of green. Okay. Now, if I write background of red here, this background of red will override what I have in the class. So let's say we have background red. Okay. So now, sometimes if you want to have a unique attribute to override what you have in the class, you just put it in the element, the style on the element to override what you have in the class. Okay, so now if I refresh this page, it's going to be red because my style in the element has override what I have in the class. Okay, so we move on. Okay, so different elements can share the same class. So like I said, you can have different elements which has the same class. So for example, if I have another div, maybe div, I can give it maybe container. Okay, I give it the same class container. Okay, and I can write something small because it's a container. The content is going to be centered. So I can write maybe my name is Kofi. I am a Ghanaian. Okay, then I close my div. Okay, now you can see that I've referred to this class here, I refer to that class here. Okay, so it's possible to refer to the class as many times as you want, so far as you want that particular attribute of the class. Okay, so now when I refresh my page, I will see my text over here. Okay, so you can see that that one has also been centered because it's in the centered container. Okay, so that's it. So you can have different containers referring to the same class. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, okay. So in this example, they added that one to the menu class that we wrote. Okay, so in this example, the menu class is now placed in the container, so it will not take the entire width because in the container we've centered it, so it took the entire width of the container, not the entire screen. Okay, so in the menu, we can modify our menu class by stating our container class here. Okay, so we have our container class here. Okay, then where we have our menu, we will write a div with that class, then we'll put our menu inside that div so that it will be centered. Okay, so we have a div here, so we have div class is equal to container. Okay, so that div will be centered, and in that div we will have our URL inside. Okay, okay, so now when we refresh our menu, okay, so now when we refresh down, this one will be centered in the centered div container, so it's not going to take the entire width, but to take the entire width of our container we've centered. Okay, so that's it. Okay, now because we didn't put this one in the container, that's why it is also there. So if we want it to be in the container, then we can also move it into the container so that that one will also be centered in the middle. Okay, so now when we refresh, okay, so when you refresh, that one has also been centered. So all of them are in the container, Okay, so we continue. So that's what we have here. Then we said we can have multiple div having the same style or having the same class. So if we want to, we can have another class here, div class is equal to container. Okay, then we close our div. Now in this div can be our paragraph and our page content. So you can write page content comes here, okay, and we close our page. So when we refresh, okay, so that one has also been centered because it's referring to the class container. So it is over here. So this one can be the content of your page. So you can write your page content here. While this one your when a person clicks, it goes to the appropriate pages as well. Okay. So we continue with the slide. Okay, so we talk about the ID attributes. Then the IDs are similar to the classes, just that they are written in a different way and they are used in a different way, even though they can all be used as a styling. Okay, now IDs, instead of a dot, they are used with the number hash, the hashtag. Okay, so that one we have the hashtag, then the name of the ID. In the class we have dot. Okay, so that's it. So you have the hashtag, then the name of the ID, then we put the attributes of that ID in the curly bracket. Okay, so the difference between the class and the ID is that the class has a dot and the name. So before the name there is a dot, but for the ID before the name there is a hashtag. Okay, now classes can be referred to as many as you want, but for ID, ideally, because of using it on JavaScript, is ideally you are supposed to refer to the ID only on only one element, so that when you are using a JavaScript to affect that element, it's not going to affect any other element. Okay, so in a JavaScript, if your elements are many of the same IDs, it will not work. Okay, but if your ID just as a styling, then that one is there. Some browsers will ignore it, so they will allow it. By JavaScript, will not let your code even run. Okay, so we will test our ID here. So we can create a page. You call it. So let's say we can call it profile. Okay, so you call it profile. So later on, you update this page as your homework. So you update it to write a profile of yourself. So you can call it profile. So we save as profile.html. Okay, so this has the same style we've talked about already. Okay, so this one, the container has a width of 400 pixels. You can change it as you want. Okay, and the URL also has a style of it. Okay, now here we've given our li an ID. So it means that li in this container with this ID should have this attribute. So if an li and you are not in the container which has been given the ID menu, you are not going to be affected. Okay, so in this example, we've seen this example already where we have container also in the background, and we put the text also there. We've seen that one already. So when we run this code, you will see just that you have a URL, the ID inside, which has the attributes of the li. We said the li of that lesson should have a float of left. That makes them to be horizontal. So if I run this code, profile, if I run the profile in my Mozilla Firefox, okay, so now you can see it that I have my URL with my ID to the menu. Now, why do we give it an ID of menu? Sometimes when you are doing a mobile responsive website, you can hide this menu for a mobile device so that you put the icon for the mobile menu. So when the person clicks, then you show the actual menu. You get it. So that one you need to use a JavaScript. So you need to give that menu an ID so that you use your JavaScript to show and hide it as the user click on it. So when it is visible when the user click on it, you hide. If it's hidden and the user click on it, then you show. So that one you need the ID to be using that one with the JavaScript. So in that one you need to define the ID, of course. Now to demonstrate this also, I want to demonstrate something. So in the UL, now we've given an attribute that this attribute says that all our UL should have a display of none. So let's say, for example, if I want a UL to not to be displayed as none, now because I've given a general rule for all UL to the list star type to be none, they all have that attribute. For example, if I have UL, I close it, and I have li, maybe the same with my favorite teacher. So let's say I wrote Mr. Anani, and I close it. I have li, Mr. Alote or Professor Alote. Okay, and I close it. Okay, and maybe I put the heading here, my favorite, so H to my favorite teachers. End of H2. Okay, so now if I refresh it, okay, now you can see that my UI is also having a red background because we've given them a general attribute that they should have a red background, and they are supposed, because this one, of course this one is vertical because the menu ID is only for that. I make the li to be float left. They are only for menu, so that one is not affecting this one. But the general that I wrote the code here, is affecting all UL that I will write. You have this attribute. So to avoid that, you can give this one a class. So you can give it UL.menu. So in the dot menu, if you assign a class to an element, only that element that refers to that class will have that attribute. So if I make it UL.menu, if I make it UL.menu, now if I have to refer to this one before, I will have to refer to the class here before this one will be affected. So let's, for example, I refresh it so you see what I'm talking about it. Okay, so you can see that because I haven't referred to my menu over here, it's not seeing, it's not getting that attribute because now I've given it as a class so that other menus will not be affected. So I have to refer to the class here as the menu before I can see it here. So I have to write class is equal to menu. Okay, so the URL will by the class menu will have this attribute. So the URL by this class menu should have these attributes that are listed here. So now if I refresh my page, okay, so now you can see that the attribute is only affecting this one, the menu class. Now any other URL will not be affected because they will not have that class name. Okay, so now in your assignment you are supposed to write a profile of yourself. So this one that will make it green, your page content, you can take off the green so that it will become a normal page. Okay, so if it's a normal page, you just write your content inside and you make this link. In the assignment, it says your link should be, so it says your link, you should have home, about me, photos, educational background, work experience, my hobbies. Okay, so each of these will be pages so that when the person clicks on, for example, my hobbies, it will see the list of hobbies you have. Even if you have a picture of doing that hobby, you can include it in the page. Then the work experience, you list the work experience you've acquired. And the educational background, you list your educational background. Then the photos, you show pictures of some of your photos, you insert it on the page. Then you have about me. So when that link is clicked, it will show a page about yourself. Okay, then the home is a brief about you, but the about me one will have more details of yourself. Okay, so that's your assignment. So here, remember that they are all they have been centered. From year to year have been centered. So you can use the same center class that you create for the name. So you can use the same center class. So for example, here we have the same container as the menu. So we only type in our content. Okay. So here we will not need to padding it, so that because it's already centered, so it doesn't need any padding at the end. Okay. So we can write something brief, maybe you can write the paragraphs and the images and everything in the container div. So you can write my name is Kofi Kofi Ajima. Okay. Okay. Then so and so. Then if you refresh, okay, now that will be the page that we have. So that page is also in the container. So in your page 2, you can write the content of it. Okay. Now each of the pages should have the menu. So in each of the pages, you have this part. All the pages, you have this part on them. So that on each page they will have, so that when somebody clicks on it, then it goes to the next page. So the person can be navigating through all the pages. So all the pages will have this part of your code where you have the menu. So if I click maybe an educational background and I'm there and I want to go back home and I click on home, it should take me to the home page. Okay. So your home page can be your index.html page. Okay. So that will be the assignment for this week. It's going to be something like this, like the way I've written mine. So I have my favorite teachers, which I've used the ordered list. So you can use all the things we've learned. So this is just a summary of the things we've learned. This by using ordered list. Okay. And by this one by using unordered list. Okay. Then you can also include a table. So if you are information, you need to include it in the table, especially your educational background. You can put them in the tabular form. The year, I think the CV is normally we write the year, the company, then the position you have, and the duration and the rest. So you can put all those ones in the tabular form just to practice your table. Okay, so just try that. And if you have any problem, you know where to contact me. You just send me a message on Kuulchat portal, then I will read it and I will reply you. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this video. It's just an additional explanation for the content on the Kuulchat.com. If you are watching this video on YouTube, then you can go to Kuulchat.com where you have the actual content where I've been referring to do the explanation. And there are more courses for you to enjoy on Kuulchat.com. And fortunately, they are all free. They are only supported by voluntary donation. So if you enjoy the course, you just have to donate something small so that the instructors which use their time to provide and make the resources available for you will enjoy and they will do it willingly. Okay. Now, if you want to have a web domain name and a hosting service to start to practice your web design, for example, this assignment that you have, if you want to create a profile of yourself so that even if you are having somebody says you should bring your CV, you can just send a link to the person, then the person can just read through all your background. Of course, then if this person wants to, it's okay, then you can officially, then you can send the CV later. And besides, if you are on the internet too, when somebody goes to your name, the person can even have actual more information about you, because the CV is only in your email or on your pen drive. But a profile of you is on the internet, so anyone that goes to your name can see your actual profile as well. So if you need a domain name and a way to put your web pages, just contact me or contact Kuulchat Media, and that will be provided for you. So thank you very much and have a lovely day. Bye.